This is Fox Sports Radio, AM 1280 Rochester.
Hello, Rochester. We are back for another morning of what's going on right here on Fox Sports 1280. I hope everybody's had a wonderful week. So much great things in 1 week. Action packed from the second that we left last week's show to witness arguably the greatest World Series in a very long time to a jam packed NFL season, a great NBA start with some unexpected, amazing teams coming on the top of our power rankings. And I'm here to fill in for the great Nate Brown Jr. with, of course, the legendary home run hitter, Greg Vaughn, as always. You're listening to What's Going On. And, Greg, how are you this morning?
Yeah, I'm good, Ryan. What's going on, brother? How are you?
Hey, I'm juggling, man. I'm making it happen, enjoying some sports, enjoying some fatherhood moments, all that good stuff. But I got to ask you, Greg, because to me as a fan, this was probably the best World Series that I've seen since back in the day, since those 2000s when I was extremely biased. Where do you rate the Dodgers versus the Blue Jays in all-time World Series that you've seen?
Like I said, for me, I mean, it was good for baseball. I think every game had its suspense and drama. Had fans on the edge of their seats. I think Dave Roberts, he pushed the right buttons at the right time. He put guys in positions to make plays, whether it's the one where he put the center fielder in to make that play with Kiki, and then Kiki. Running over to the center fielder with his hands up, saying, don't touch it, because your guy just got in the game. He was going to grab the ball, and then, I mean, that was changing. Blue Jays had their chances, bases loaded, no out. You know what I mean? Like I said, it was, we went 18 innings. Freddie did his thing. It was a good World Series. I think it was good for baseball. It was, you sort of feel bad for Toronto because you have the Yankees. I mean, the Yankees. I'm thinking about you when I talk about Yankees, but the Dodgers hit 203 as a team and won the World Series. You know what I mean? And that's hard to do, man.
Yeah, it is. And unexpected heroes. I just had everything that you would want in a World Series. Rojas tying the game in the ninth like that. Will Smith, always a World Series champion. It doesn't matter who's in the physical. The name Will Smith will be a champion. But Yoshinobu Yamamoto, to me, I mean, he's right up there. It's either him or Skeens. His performance, I'm not sure if anyone could replicate the way that he was out there. I think Randy Johnson was the last one to pitch in 3 games like that in the World Series. Where do you rank Yamamoto? What are your thoughts on his performance?
Wow, for me, I mean, like you said, there's only been a couple guys that have ever done it, right? So, he ranks up there at the top. I think, you know, uh, when the Dodgers rewarded him with that big contract, everyone was saying, these guys are getting, they're getting paid too much, they're overpaid. I think he brought a chip to LA, and they rode his back, and I think all that talk aside, now people see why they get paid what they get paid, right?
That's right. And, all this talk now, because there's more Japanese free agents pending. We just saw the Dodgers win a chip off the backs of 2 amazing Japanese baseball players. So that being said, before we get into MLB free agency and the awards, do you think there's a chance of a three-peat in LA? Or what's the
Yeah, but
chance, I
they're
should say?
yeah. Well, I think it's hard. I think it's going to be hard. It was hard for them to repeat, but if there's a team that's built for it, I think they are. I think but you know, y- a lot of it comes down to luck and health. You know what I mean? You're one pitch away from you know these guys getting hurt, and being out for a year because all the stress that they put on their arms. I think it comes down to health. It comes down to executing and staying healthy. I don't think they're going to lose any pieces. You know what I mean? I think their team, they sign these guys to put to 8 and 9 year contracts, right? 10 year contracts. So I think they're built for the long run. It's just going to come down to who can stay healthy. I think that's with any team, in any sport. If you can stay healthy, you have a shot to win.
And you look at the last team to three-peat, the Yankees, they went out and they got Roger Clemens after their second championship. So it's really not out of the ballpark for these guys to just go for more superstars in the offseason. And here we are in an offseason with many superstars out there. Cody Bellinger just opted out. Kyle Tucker is out there. Um, Now, there is one name that I was very curious to ask you about. I'm not sure if you've been paying attention to the international front, but Munetaka Murakami, the third baseman out in Japan, some are saying that he's going to be offered 8 years, somewhere between 180 and 200 million dollars. But people aren't sure if his game is going to translate. He's got more home runs than anybody in the history of that Japanese baseball league so far, but he does strike out quite a bit. In fact, I read that if you're throwing him 93 miles an hour and over, he's very likely to strike out. So obviously that's going to be a problem in Major League Baseball. But then again, you see guys like Kyle Schwarber that have built a potentially Hall of Fame career off of just slugging. So what are your thoughts? Do you think that Murakami's game is going to translate? And if so, where do you see him as a good fit?
I don't know if it'll translate. I think, for some of them it does. I'm sure they're doing their homework. They're not going to pay this guy upwards of $200 million not to be able to come over here and produce. I think, once again, it's going to be in the right situation. It's a big transition for these guys to come over here. You look at the Dodgers; they have three former, current Japanese citizens on their team. So there's a little bit of that, and they're playing in LA. That little bit of that home feeling. You know what I mean? So I think who knows? I think it'll be interesting to see. And, I know the Yankees are trying to make a splash, so and they need a third baseman. So I'm sure New York will be going after him. I'm sure Boston will be going after him. It'll be interesting. Like you said, there's a lot of guys out there. From Tucker to Bellinger to Schwarber. I mean, I heard Boston's going to be players on a lot of these guys. So we just have to wait and see.
And we mentioned some outfielders, but Bo Bichette, after his performance just this year alone, he's a top free agent too. Do you see Bo Bichette leaving the Toronto Blue Jays?
Oh yeah, uh yeah, I do. I think you know they prove that they can get there. You know, not without him, but they can sustain. Uh, they played with the Dodgers. I mean, without him up until game what 3, 4. You know what I mean? It was they ran through the Yankees. They went through the playoffs. They did all this without him. And, who knows if because I mean speed is part of his game. If this series is a lot different if you have a healthy Bo Bichette because he's scoring and he's not going just base to base. So I think like I said, I think Boston, man. I mean, I know there's going to be a lot of teams out there trying to make plays, but I think this is going to be the year of Boston Red Sox making a big splash in the free agent market.
Could be right. And even Bregman out there now. They're not even sure if Bregman's going to resign. Didn't
No, he
have like
opted out. Yeah, he's not. He didn't resign. So, but I'm just saying. I think between the kid coming over here from Japan, I think the Yankees and the Red Sox are going to go all in on him. And then I heard Bichette might be linked to the Red Sox. So I think and Schwarber might be linked to the Red Sox. They were talking about never letting him go. So I think the Red Sox are going to make a big play. They don't like watching baseball in the fall, right? They rather be playing. So I think the Yankees and the Red Sox are going to be all in on a few guys.
I think you're right about that. So MLB awards are starting to come out. We just got to see the Silver Slugger Awards. The Yankees were the best team, offensive team in baseball. My man Jazz Chisholm, love Jazz Chisholm, won his first Silver Slugger. And we're almost up to Rookie of the Year. And a lot of people are saying, a lot of experts predict Roman Anthony, but Nick Kurtz had one of the greatest rookie seasons in a very long time. Who do you think is going to take a Rookie of the Year this year, Greg, in the American League and the National League?
I don't know. I think Kurtz too. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how you can give the Rookie of the Year based on a half a year of playing in the big leagues, right? So I think there's some guys that deserve it, that grinded, and who knows, man. You know what? I don't know which way these writers go nowadays, and these coaches, and so I think I Anthony to me, I still think he's eligible to be a rookie next year if I'm correct. I don't think he has enough at bats, right?
We
Did
should
he
look
pass
that up.
that?
I'm pretty sure Roman Anthony did. Let's look. Okay, so Roman Anthony this year had 257 at bats.
So
I
how do you
think that
become rookie? How do
yeah,
you become rookie of the year on 257 at bats?
I'm not sure that might actually be too much to qualify, but not enough to win Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, I mean, you had some guys that did some damage. You know what I mean? You had some rookies that did that went out there and played their ass off. So I just don't. Once again, it comes down to small markets and big markets, right? It comes down to, your New Yorks, your Boston's, your LA's. These guys. You know, these guys get a lot of pub, and sometimes they overshadow guys in small markets.
Well, before we get into the next segment, because there's just so much football and basketball to talk about, I want to say that I hate to say this, but I would pick Cal Raleigh. I got to agree with you. Now, as things have come to a wrap, and I saw Cal Raleigh take Seattle to the postseason. I know it's not a postseason award, but I do think it's fair, especially considering he's playing catcher, like you said. The more I think about it, I keep trying to remove my bias. As historic a year Aaron Judge had, Cal Raleigh's was even more historic, and the fact that he was catching every day is just insane.
Well, I would love for Aaron Judge to keep winning MVPs, right? I think it's good for game. It's good for, people don't want to hear this, but it's good for people that look like me and him. You know what I mean? For little boys that are playing this game that they can idolize and have a role model of, not of course first their parents, but someone like Aaron Judge. You know what I mean? And inspire them to play baseball. But what Cal Raleigh did as a catcher, it's never been done before, and to lead that team and to be a top defensive catcher and to play every day, you know what I mean, is unheard of. The benchmarks that he set this year, are going to stand for a long time. And without without him, Seattle is not Seattle. You know what I mean? And we wouldn't even be talking about them in the playoffs. So, but if you take Judge out of that lineup too for the Yankees, you get the same thing. I mean, the stuff that Aaron Judge is doing is Barry Bondish. You know what I mean? I mean, when you're talking about on base percentage, you're talking about walks, you're talking about OPS, you're talking about home runs, average. I mean, the stuff that he's doing is, we haven't seen this since Barry Bonds. So, I mean, he's the closest thing we have to it, and I just think it could be co MVP. I don't know. I mean, it could be one of those years where there is a co MVP, because I think Judge is going to get his due, but in the era and stuff that we live in, I think, Riley deserves his flowers.
Imagine a co MVP. It's like you
It's
said,
been a while. It's been a while.
it's been a long time, and he is hitting those type of numbers, like you said, Barry Bonds numbers. But what Cal Raleigh's doing, both defensively, and not to take anything away from Aaron Judge's defense, he's a great right fielder, but played a lot of designated hitter this year. I think overall, and I'm saying this as a Yankees fan, it might be Cal Raleigh's year. Doesn't mean that it will be next year, because this was just so ridiculous. I would love to see Cal Raleigh sustain this level of play, but it's hard to ask that of a catcher. Like you said, it's just such a wear and tear that you go through.
Yeah, it is. It is. Just to play every day as a everyday as a player in the field. Can you imagine putting that equipment on, getting hit with balls, and every time? You're squatting nonstop. You know what I mean? So it's a testament to him too. His workouts, his off season workouts, how he prepares. As you've seen him, what he was doing to get warmed up for the home run derby. And people don't realize. They say it's a non-contact sport. It's baseball. Playing baseball for 9 months is a grind. People, they just see the game. They don't see everything that goes on from, up until game time. So for him to be able to do what he did, hey man, like I said, we're seeing things that we never seen before. Otani, uh, strike out 10 and hit 3 home runs. We'll probably never see that again unless he strikes out 20 and hits 4 home runs. You know what I mean? It could be him again. So, records are meant to be broken, and these guys are. God has made some incredible athletes, and it's a testament, and it's an honor to be able to watch them.
It certainly is. And before we get to some NBA, I want everybody to know that we have a great website that's been updated. You can all check out foxsportsradio.com. WGO.com. Go there for more what's going on. We're going to come back with NBA news. There's a lot going on. There's some unexpected teams that are doing well. We need to give out some roses here for the morning. Greg Vaughn, Ryan Vernell in studio, and we shall return. Don't go nowhere. You're tuned in to Fox Sports Rochester. This is what's going on. Ryan Vernell and Greg Vaughn in studio. But before we get to some NBA action, Greg, you made a great point in between segments that Kurtz really is a beast. What was it you wanted to say about the great young Nick Kurtz?
I want to say that it shouldn't be close. He should be hands down, the AL MVP. I mean, you talking about all around great defensive player, super, super sock it to me power. You know what I mean? And on base percentage and all of it. I think, people, we're excited. The A's are coming to here in Vegas, in a couple of years. And with that foundation that they have, if they can find a way just to keep what they have and add some pieces to it, I think the A's are going to be, we might be talking about the A's of old. You know what I mean? Because their core, these young players they have are good and led by Kurtz. Like I said, if you would think a year ago he was in college, now he dominated big league pitching, right? So I nothing against your boy in Boston, but Kurtz has to be the MVP.
I agree. Not even close, like you said. Played out for the whole year. And if anybody gives him a run for his money, it's Jacob Wilson, which I'm not even sure if that's even close. But like you
Yeah,
said,
I
I'm
mean,
so
this Jacob Wilson. I mean, for half the year he was leading the NL in hitting. I mean, he was hitting 330, 340. Like I said, the A's have some great young talent. It's just let's just hopefully they won't F it up before they get to Vegas.
yeah,
You know what
and
I
I,
mean?
and I don't think that they will because it seems like the ownership in Vegas is the ownership that they've needed. You talk about how the kids grow up, and me personally, we grow up with kids like my two sons in there. They have no idea what it means for Yankees greatness and Yankees dynasty. Well, how about Oakland? You look at the all-time numbers of the Oakland A's, they're one of the greatest teams in the sport, top four, before Boston went on their historic run over the last 25 years. I believe they were the third most World Series champions, if I remember correct. But now we're finally going to get to see athletic greatness. And I think it is coming to Las Vegas. I think they have an owner that's willing to spend money. And that, as we learned just from the last 2 years, that is what makes the difference, right? I mean, always whoever's going to spend the money and get the best players out there. And I don't think they're afraid to break the bank. They just got, I have a mental slip up, but the pitcher that they just signed, it was an all-time athletics record in how much money that they spent. They were playing Moneyball forever. Severino from the Yanks and went to the Mets, then followed up with a 3-year, I believe it was like a $72 million contract, something you would never see the Oakland Athletics put their money behind. But yes, very exciting. And I'm sure you're very hyped down in Vegas because they could make some use of an MLB great like yourself. I got my fingers crossed that they find you in there somehow, that you find your way to that Vegas mix.
Yeah, you know what? It's exciting, and they should spend money. They've been saving it for a long time. You know what I mean? So I think, the people here are excited. I know they're playing in my hometown in Sacramento right now. I was sort of hoping we could do like a Oklahoma City Thunder, and on that trial basis, how they were able to keep the Thunder, right? So, that was just supposed to be a pit stop, and I was hoping the same thing can happen in Oakland, but hey, you drive down that strip, you see that stadium being built, and you see all the renderings, and it's going to be amazing. It's amazing times for Vegas as far as sports, and it's a good thing, and sports bring people together. So that's another good thing that happens, right?
That's true. And speaking of Vegas, I don't think anybody could have predicted the Chicago Bulls start to this NBA season. But then again, when you look at how apt the Oklahoma City Thunder general management and front offices at drafting, we saw glimpses of Josh Giddey with the Oklahoma City Thunder. Got himself in some alleged allegations. There were a lot of jokes out there on the internet, but it seems like all that subsided, and he's led the Chicago Bulls to what, a 6-2 start to the NBA season. Nobody saw it coming. What are your thoughts on the Bulls? Is this going to sustain?
Well, you never know. Like I said, I mean, they have the momentum. He was a lottery pick for a reason. I mean, he's 6'8" point guard. You know what I mean? And I mean, and he's still a baby, right? So I think a lot of it is, being able to draft. I mean, you can't miss on draft picks because it sets you back so long. You know what I mean? You have to be able to build from within because, with these salaries the way they are, if you're just trying to build, teams on free agents, you're going to be over the salary cap. You know what I mean? It's going to be hard to sustain. So, and you could look at the Clippers. I mean, with all where they're at in the salary cap over the last few years, and they haven't won anything, right? So you have to be able to draft and build within, and I think the Bulls have done that. They have drafted well. They haven't missed on not big name free agents, but they went out and got guys that fit their system, and they're buying in. And like I said, in this league, man, you have to be able to play defense because it's hard to go out and shoot 47% from threes and think you're going to win every game, get night in and night out. And you look at Oklahoma City Thunder, they do it better than anybody. They don't miss on draft picks. They play defense. They play hard, and the mid range game is sick on all levels. They score from all levels. They don't shoot 45 threes a night. They come down and that mid-range game, they kill you with those big, strong guys. So, this is a wing-dominated league. And I think you have to have wings to be able to sustain in this league. The big men are shooting threes, the stretch fives, but you got to have wings, man. You have to be athletic and you have to be able to rebound and score in that mid-level.
And speaking of wings, I'd say the most unexpected, and if you've been paying attention, he's been good. But Denny Advija, am I saying his name right?
Yeah.
Portland Trailblazers, new star. I don't think anybody saw Portland coming off to a start like they have, and what a difference Drew Holiday is, right? Definitely the most underrated Celtic in the last few years, and especially when it comes to that championship team. What a difference that he's made with that front court defense. I'm sorry, backcourt defense with that Portland Trailblazers team. I mean, they're looking good too all around.
But once again, Portland, they had to be bad for a long time. They drafted well, and then you bring in somebody that is a pro. You bring in a Holiday that can lead these guys not just on the floor but off the floor. I mean, and that's what a lot of teams don't do. They don't have veterans. They have a bunch of 22-year-olds policing each other, right? So it's hard to win that way. You have to have somebody that someone respects, and Holiday does it, like I said, on the court, off the court. And once again, they drafted well. They didn't miss on draft picks. I mean, they have some guards that they can fill it up, man, but they have wings also. They're
Exactly.
athletic. They're athletic, and they can get up and down the floor. And you just think about it. They got rid of Aiden, and now they're winning. The first pick in the draft you get rid of, and you're winning, right? So, I think it has to go back to you can't miss on draft picks, and you have to be able to add key pieces, and you need leadership. So, who better to lead than Drew Holiday?
Absolutely. And I think Donovan Clingan is just a better fit for the way that they run their offense. It just makes sense. Although Aiden is having his luck in LA. So let's take it over to the Los Angeles Lakers, who are also off to a pretty solid start this year as well. Austin Reeves playing like a superstar all of a sudden. Luka averaging 40 points a game. What is the ceiling of the Los Angeles Lakers with the return of LeBron James?
Well, I mean, once again, does it disrupt the system when he gets back? You know what I mean? Or does the thing about LeBron, he's pretty unselfish. You know what I mean? He's not one of those guys that is going to just pound the basketball and not give it up. He's almost a pass first guy. So I think it's gonna be funny to watch him and Luca, you know, at the same time. But also Austin Reeves now, right now when Luca was out, and he's pretty much a one or a two option, right? When Luca's out, he's the one option. Now when you get LeBron back, is he going to be a four option, or is he going to continue to be, you know, do what he does, right? And put the ball in the hole. So I think, does he stay aggressive, or does he subdue to the two superstars, the two future Hall of Famers he has on his team, right? I think they need him to be aggressive. I think you need, you know, a you need to be able to kick it out to him, and those guys are going to have so much, so many double teams that he's going to have opportunities to fill it up, and once again, you're talking about a non-drafted player that is one of the main cogs on maybe a championship team.
I just never would have thought that we'd be saying, even though it is only almost 10 games into the season, not even. but that we'd be saying that Austin Reeves is averaging 31 points a game with 9 assists, and Luke is going to be averaging 40 points a game with 9 assists. And there are people out there that would rather trade LeBron James and get some pieces out of it to surround these guys. Do you think that's blasphemy?
I think LeBron will have the final say in that. I think I'm sure internally they would like to do that. You know what I mean? They don't want to mess up the chemistry. But you're talking about 1A, 1B, greatest player ever to play the game, and but you have new ownership, you have a new direction, you have new everything. And you don't want to mess up the chemistry. So I'm sure they would love to, but I don't think it'll be as easily said than done.
It's going to be tough.
Yeah,
LeBron's
you
got
know
that
what?
pride.
And you know what? And you better hope they keep winning when he comes back, right? Because
Yeah, because that's what you'd be afraid of. Like maybe as great as LeBron is, and I've argued he's the GOAT. Although I think Jordan's the best to actually, if I could take a prime Jordan, I take him over a prime LeBron. That's another conversation. But I've always been the one to defend LeBron and have his back always. And I don't know. I just feel like maybe he is at that age where, look, like you said, maybe the front office of the Lakers wishes that they could do something about it, but you can't disrespect arguably the GOAT that way. But let us know what you think, folks. Go to our Instagram page, What's Going On Sports, as we transition to segment 3 of tonight's broadcast, or I should say today's broadcast. Here in Rochester, you're listening to Fox Sports 1280, Greg Vaughn and Ryan Vernell in studio. And of course, Nate Brown Jr., his presence is always felt. We will return soon, so don't go nowhere. You are listening to What's Going On right here on Fox Sports Rochester. And I want to get into all things Week 10, but because we're in the state of New York, we're going to get started with our miserable New York football teams, the New York Jets and the New York Giants, two teams that are letting down this great city in which I have to drive about an hour and a half to get to. But Greg, overall, what are your thoughts on Aaron Glenn as the head coach of the New York Jets? He's a Jets legend. He's keeping his composure. I love Aaron Glenn. I liked him as a player. I don't think it's really fair what he's been dealt. I don't think it would be fair if they fired him at the end of the season. But, New York media is already claiming that Aaron Glenn is on the hot seat. And I don't like this at all. What are your thoughts? Do you think the Jets can still gain some respect before the season ends?
So when you trade away your two best defensive players, I mean, and you have a quarterback that, that we don't know if he, at what level, what degree of an NFL quarterback he is. We all love him as a human being. He's, I wish Justin Fields nothing but love, but Aaron Glenn, I mean, it's his first gig. I mean, you got to give him some time. I think the guys are buying into it. They're playing hard, but how can you fire a guy when you trade away your two best defensive players? In this past week of the trade deadline, right? One goes to Dallas, one goes to Indianapolis, and you have so many uncertainties out there. I don't know how you can you got to give him a chance. I mean, I think it'd be a bad move. I think again, it would go down as the Jets doing what they do, panicking, getting ready, starting all over, another offensive coordinator coming in there, just doing what bad teams do. You gotta be stable at the top. You have to have some patience, and it takes time. When you're bad for a long time, it takes time to turn it around. And I think they just got their first win, so let's see what happens. Let's see what Justin Fields can do, and hopefully this team continues to go upwards. I think Glenn, for me, like I said, as a player, he's great. As maybe he needs someone around him that has been an NFL head coach to help him with that clock management system that he has a tendency to not manage so well. You know what I mean? But it's all the bumps and bruises as being a rookie coach. I mean, he's going to be fine. Head
I think
coach,
so
not a
too.
rookie coach.
And I think
Yeah,
that it's kind of his get out of jail free. The fact they traded Quentin Williams and Sauce Gardner. Now, I would think that he doesn't need to have as much accountability if they do finish 1-16. So I don't know.
no,
I would like to see Aaron Glenn with a stable team and a full offseason, being able to have a say in who they pick up. I think it would be way too soon to get rid of this Jets legend.
no, and I don't think they will. I think you have to give them some time, and I think I mean, you look at it. I mean, this is the year of the quarterback coming out of college too. So I mean, they would be in a position to select one of these quarterbacks and hopefully move in the right direction. If Justin Fields is not their guy, and even if he is their guy, he's only there for till next year, right? So, he signed a 2-year deal, but you got to give Aaron Glenn some time. Yeah, I mean, the guys are playing hard for him. You can see it, the enthusiasm, his excitement on the sidelines, but also, like you said, you could also see some of the weaknesses and the flaws in the clock management.
A little bit, which probably, like you mentioned, rookie coach. Now take it to the Meadowlands, I guess you'd say. When they swap the fields up a little bit, and the Giants are out there. The New York Giants have Brian Daboll, who I always believed in as a great head coach. They've made zero moves at the free agents or at the trade deadline, and in the history of the New York Giants, no coach has gone on for a fourth season after 3 losing seasons. Now it's a little bit different, I guess, for Daboll because he did win Coach of the Year his first year coaching the Giants, and it was a great Giants season. But at this point, Greg, do you think that the leash is so short that we might not see Brian Daboll as the head coach of the Giants next year if the Giants continue this horrible football?
Well, I mean, at some point, it's what have you done for me lately, right? That 3 years ago being coach of the year. I mean, it is what it is. But at the same time, I mean, this team been decimated by injuries. You know what I mean? I mean, they were just getting their swag, with Dart and Scatterboo, and then he gets hurt. They didn't even get to have the Dart neighbors relationship. He gets hurt in the first game that he starts. You know what I mean? So they're missing pieces too. So, once again, I mean, it, it's hard to win with 1B and 1C players replacing those guys, right? I mean, you're talking about impact players that they've lost, and so I think, and we need the big boy on defensive line to do what he does too. You know what I mean? Uh, it's just maybe a different coach, but then too, now we have a different system. Now you have Dart starting over. Now having the guys learn a whole new offense, and you see, what Dart is doing under Gable. So I mean, I think you have to give him. To me, I would give him another chance because where do I go? Who do I bring in as a coach? I mean, these clips. I mean, you see what's happening in Miami. You see, the analytic guys. I just think football is bad in the sense that it's hard to win. So me and the guys were having we were talking yesterday, at the golf course, and I was like, man, I'm taking 3 points in the first quarter. 4th and 2, I'm taking 3 points. 4th and 5, I'm taking 3 points. Because if you look at all these games, they go down to the fourth quarter, the team loses by 1 point. When you could have had 6 in the first or the second, take your points. Take your point. And I mean, shit. I mean, and a 4th and 3 is hard to get, man. 4th and 2 is hard to get. 4th and 1, you look at it now, it's hard to get. Take your 3 points. I mean, because these games aren't being lost in the fourth quarter; they're being lost in the first quarter because guys aren't getting their points. Teams are not taking their points.
Of course, unless you consider that Denver Broncos loss, which was just, I mean, look, there's a few games that the Giants should have won. They really shouldn't be in this position. It really is injuries. It's out of Dayball's hands, and I thought that defense was going to be way better. We've got superstars on that New York Giants defense, and they just don't play the way that you would expect them to.
Well, part of it too is, I mean, when you have a double-digit lead in the third and fourth quarter, run the ball. Run the ball. Take your time off the.
That's a coaching thing, exactly. Like,
Yeah, that
how
is
are
a
you
coaching
not going to
thing.
have them run the ball and give the game up like that?
Run the ball. Let your defense get some rest. Keep them off the field for a while, and play field position. I mean, but you're going out there throwing the ball 3 out of 4 downs, and throwing interceptions and turning the ball over, killing momentum. Once again, it goes back to coaching, man. Run the ball. I mean, you have to run the ball to be good in this league. And, they were trying to say, once again, analytics. Oh, running backs are overrated. No, they're not. No, they're not. I mean, you look at McCaffrey and you look at the teams that are having success. They have someone in that backfield. You look at the year that the Eagles had last year. It was Saquon. This year, no Saquon, and they were struggling. It's hard to drop back 30 and 40 times and win in this league. So now you see they get back to running the ball with Saquon, and good things are starting to happen. You see
Jonathan
the Giants.
Taylor.
They had
I mean,
Dart. They also had Scatterboo back there. You know what I mean?
exactly.
It's you have to be able to run the ball. And these coaches, like I said, make it about the players. Don't make it about the coach. Make it about the players. Let the players get all the flowers. Don't try to come up with these. First play of the game, you got 6 wide receivers out there. I mean,
Yeah.
look at what Dak is doing right now, and look at their record. You know what I mean? It's hard to do. Sometimes you can ride a quarterback, but you got to be able to run the ball and have good defense. And the way you have good defense is keep them off the field.
And at this point, I look at the Giants. They don't have the running backs. They aren't playing the way that they should be. The defense isn't holding up. I don't want them to hurt Jackson Dart. I don't want this guy to go out there because he plays hard and he does run the football. I don't want the Giants to finish up, 3-14 and then injure our future star quarterback. Do you think there's a chance that Dayball pulls Jackson Dart and puts Russell Wilson back out there before the season ends?
No, but I think you got to be smart with your play calling too, right? I mean, because you don't. I mean, Dart still has to grow. He still has to learn. There's nothing like experience, so he needs to be out there and seeing different systems and different schemes, and continue his growth. But at the same time, it's like we just seen this past week with Daniels. You know what I mean? Dislocated elbow, down by 30 points, and these guys are competitors and all that other stuff, and I mean, that was another horrific injury, you know what I mean? To his left elbow. I mean, you got to start, I mean, down 30, man, maybe get him out of the game. He's just coming back off a hamstring injury. And I know you're trying to get some rhythm, but man, this league is non-forgiving. You know what I mean? This league is tough, and you have to be smart with your play calling. I mean, take Danny Dimes now. Danny Dimes is over, he's playing well, throwing touchdowns, but he has a running game. You know what I mean? You have to be able to run the ball.
That's right.
And I just think when you get down to especially the playoff football, man, it's about being physical and being able to get 3 and 4 yards.
That's right. Relentless. You must be relentless. And part of that is your mental health. And we have the great Natanya Wachtel, behavioral scientist, that's going to be joining us very soon to discuss mental health in sports and how important it is. We all know how important it is, but we're going to have an expert peel back the layers, especially in light of the recent NFL tragedy involving Marshawn Nealon. Rest in peace. And we're sending prayers out to the Dallas Cowboys fans, family, and franchise. But we'll be back soon. This is What's Going On. Greg Vaughn, Ryan Vernell in studio. Don't go nowhere. We are back. This is What's Going On. Ryan Vernell, Greg Vaughn, and of course, the lovely Natanya Wachtel in studio. We know how important mental health is in sports, everybody. Some say that you have to be an absolute madman to be the top of any game, right? Whether it's basketball. They said Michael Jordan used to just make stories up in his head about people. And that was what would drive him and motivate him. He'd literally pretend that somebody did something horrible to him and change his mentality before games. You heard of LT coming out there encouraging humans to act like a pack of wild dogs. So obviously, you need to have a different type of mental health in general if you're going to make it that far. And that's why we've brought on Natanya Wachtel to discuss how important it is, especially in light of the recent news of Marshawn Nealon dead of an apparent suicide at 24 years old.
Yeah.
Just so bizarre. So, Doc, welcome to the show. First off, how are you on this lovely Sunday morning?
I'm okay. I'm grateful to be here with you both. And just to be clear, nothing I can say in 5, 10, 15 minutes or even a lifetime can, communicate appropriately and with enough substance to say how tragic it is when anyone's life is cut short like this. When it's someone who so many people look up to, admire, believe in, and who had just had some career achievements, right? Just recently, how complicated and tragic that can be. So I just want to say we're going to do some sound bites here, but just out of respect, we're just scratching the surface.
I think I hear a little feedback coming out of there, but that's all right. We'll figure that out. I don't know if you got your phone near the wires. I don't know. We'll figure that part out. But yes, it is just so devastating what went down with Marshawn Nealon. I'm not exactly sure. All these, details are starting to come out. But I mean, Greg, you played professional baseball for a very, very, very long time. How important was it to keep your mental health in check during those times? And what did you do to kind of give yourself a mental health check if you felt it slipping a little bit?
Well, I think, just like anything, I think you have to have checks and balances, right? I think, you know, uh, you made a statement earlier. You do turn into something else when you're competing. Trying is doesn't take much to try, but when you're trying to compete at the highest level, I mean, you do become someone else during that time. I truly believe that, and I think afterwards you have to be able to decompress also, because you'd have to be able to go home and be a father and people. It's just so many different aspects in life. We're all human, so you're not playing well, getting booed. I mean, all these things affect you as a human being, letting your teammates down, letting the city down. I think you have to be able to have people around you that can keep you grounded, right? I think you know, with football, I think it might be different because these guys have been taking their brain has been getting shook up for so many years, and at what time and what level. I mean, you can be 24 years old and suffer from that trauma, right? And also we don't know what people are dealing with and what their childhood was like and what trauma they have going into this. And he was a second round pick. He just scored his first touchdown of his career as a defensive lineman on a blocked punt. And you think he's living out his dreams and everything that he's dreamt about since he's been a little boy, and then he has these demons in his head that he's fighting every single day, and he succumbed to them. It's I don't have the right answer, Ryan. I don't know. I think every individual is different. I think these teams are putting people in position like Doc, to help these guys deal with this on a day-to-day basis. But life itself, man, look at the state of our world right now. I mean, it's crazy. You know what I mean? And then on top of that, these guys are making so much money, and being pulled in 50 different directions. I mean, it's a lot to overcome and sustain. So I mean, I don't have the actual answer to that. I just think hopefully, you know, uh, mine was started at home at an early age, so I think the support system was there for me, and because it does have to start, when you're young, and you have to be able, your parents have to be your role models.
So that's a really good point. And speaking of parents, it's in the news. So his mother had passed a little over a year ago, and he was carrying his mother's ashes with him, right? So he was having this silent grief and probably some internal fights that we didn't see, right? So he was literally wearing his mother's ashes around his neck, right? Um, so I think you said it before about the sports system, and we talk about this on Game Mindset, we talk about this across different kinds of sports, but football is kind of uniquely different, at least from what I've understood from speaking with players, working with players, in terms of really that pushing through fear, pain, and emotion to, and Matthias actually said this to us in the very first clip we made for Game Mindset, right, Ryan? About you have to decide that the person across from you, who might be a perfectly nice person, that you kind of want to kill them. And you need to train all of your physical self and mental self into that rage, aggression, strength, power, maneuvering, and then turn it off like a switch. But we all know that humans don't really work that way. And so there's part of that that's in football that's in its own way. But looking also as mental struggle as weakness. And that seems to be something that the sports world is starting to wake up to, that it's not a weakness. It's the brain and the body finally saying, I can't carry this alone. So not that it's personal failure on his part, that it was a signal. Um, and it's a signal of emotional burden, like you said. And maybe the organizations in place come together often after something happens, like someone acts out, someone has a violent episode, someone has a drug thing, something gets in the news, right? And something in this regard, they're saying they're offering counseling, right? What the Cowboys said, they're making counseling resources available. That's what I read anyway, right?
Most teams, they have a sports psychologist. They've got mental performance coaches. They've got coaches that teach you breathing and regulation and confidence recovery after you lose a horrible game. So they've implemented this already. What do you look at the future? What do you look at the future, Natanya, of mental health in sports? What steps do you see these teams taking to help players avoid these types of horrible situations?
I mean, that's a big question. I'll say it's kind of like, to me, what I observed with on the police mental health in the incarcerated individuals and in soldiers. And I say this to only say, I know what I present as, and I went in there observing and watching other very well-meaning professionals not resonate with the people in the room. The way they spoke in platitudes, and I'm not trying to disrespect an entire career and industry, to be very clear. I'm not trying to say therapy and CBT and psychiatry and medications don't work. And I'm not saying that. I am saying that there is a knowing of how to communicate and connect to different kinds of people that are shaped by the cultural truths that are within their system. So if you're from outside of that system, just coming in like a savior and saying, these are the things in psychology that help you, you may be doing the motions and checking the box. Like, we had a counseling session with the team, but then you talk to the players and they'll be like, that lady didn't know shit what she was talking about. Or that guy, like, whatever, ivory tower or whatever it may be. And that's fair. And I think it's time to take a really hard look at who is in the room with the people individually and as teams. Do they have trust? Do they have authority? Do they have language and lexicon that makes them feel like they're working together, not telling you things like, cheer up, Charlie, isn't going to work, especially when you're dealing with huge layers of pain and trauma and the person opposite you can't possibly relate, or you feel that way. And if you use language that's just sort of like pop psych 101, and that's been that's controversial. So it's another layer, which is why we have, for example, I think if I can mention him on the air, Dr. Dimas, like we have someone who is a veteran who's served in real combat, working with dads, people relate to someone like them. And to make sure that there's someone, and it doesn't have to be maybe the same gender expression or ethnicity or religious perspective, although that can help to break the ice so people feel like it's one of us. But also the way we communicate what that help looks like has to be adjusted very differently when your culture and training, whether it's through the military or a professional sports team, it's just not going to be the same as, a suburban office worker going to a therapist. And I'm, again, with full respect, it's time to change the way we communicate ahead of time and the way we build athletes up before there's a problem. And that also includes, by the way, the financial literacy that often is a big part that nobody talks about. Meaning, first money means first stress, right? Everyone coming with their hand out. If you have an injury, what that means, having every success, the fear of it being pulled away or losing it. So having a basic sense of, I can play this game, I can be a part of this team. If I'm not, what will that look like? What will that be? Doing that before the injuries and the accidents happen, so people have that balance around their worst fears. And that's what creeps in. I'm oversimplifying this, but that's my observation.
Good observation there, Doc. And I do agree that there's just that normalcy, and like you said, it's a mentality to be tough and to not take that mental health part very seriously. When the psychiatrist is in the room with the team, like you said, they laugh about it when they leave, but to find the right person, very, very important. And it looks like we found the right person to come here and help improve our mental health. So, Doctor, thank you very, very much. And Greg, thank you very, very much for joining us as always. To everybody out there listening, thank you, and get your mental health checked out. I know that everybody's having their Medicaid ripped away left and right, but sometimes you can even use AI to improve your mental health. I know that Natanya might shake her head at me for saying this. I'm sorry, ChatGPT is a great therapist. Take it from me, Ryan, right here on What's Going On. Everybody, thanks for listening. Go Giants, go Yankees, go 49ers for Greg. Natanya.
Just remember, it's not private.
Yes, that's true. It is going to the cloud in the sky, and they will judge you forever. Remember that. They know some dirt on me. Let me tell you, my God, I hope ChatGPT doesn't leak my personal life, but we'll find out soon enough. And also, remember, folks, continue to drink GV23 wine. That also improves your mental health. If you just have a small amount, good enough amount to keep it going.
And your skin and your cells, but everything in moderation.
Exactly.
Yes, ma'am.
Any last words, Mr. Vaughn, before we take off for the week?
No, everyone just have a blessed day. And, for me, how about everybody just try to treat other people and treat people better and talk to people better? Be a little bit kinder to people. The flux and the way the world is now with all this hate and division, we have to find a way to come back together and
We need to merge.
talk. Yeah, and talk to each other better. I mean, just because we disagree doesn't mean I have to be an asshole to you or you have to be an asshole to me. We should be able to agree to disagree. But we should be able to also be able to talk to one another like a human being, with some respect. If you want respect, give respect. You know what I mean? We taught that at an early age. So that would be my words of encouragement you know, for this segment. Let's treat one another, I mean, we're all here together. Let's make it the best place ever.
I agree, Greg. Wise words to the
Can I
part
add
with.
one little thing? Do we have 10 seconds about fans? Because I do think it's important to say that in this particular case, that fans have more power than we give credit for too, right? Like we're cheering for the sacks and the touchdowns, right? But also, what about when someone needs help, right? And like maybe validating that, because I think there's a lot of like, aw, but do you know what I mean? Like fans can be a part of it. If fans want to see the power up story, then that gets featured as well.
Yep, good
Well
point.
said. Very well said. Fans out there, keep your health in check. Listeners out there, keep your health in check. We'll be back at the same time, the same place next week. Visit us online, Fox Sports Radio, WGO.com. Love you, folks. Over and out. Peace.
See ya.